Facebook. Show all my groups. Save. Okay. We're live now. Cool. All right. So let's make sure that we're really live on Facebook. And hey, everyone, welcome. We were trying to go live on YouTube and had a little bit of tech issues. So we'll get that all figured out for the next one. So I'm Dr. Christy Preddy-Franzek, and welcome to Transformative Talks for Early Childhood Educators. I wanted to set the stage for the day, and then I'm going to bring on my two amazing friends and colleagues. With the pandemic and the reopening of schools, there's a lot of conversations being had about what should we reimagine, what should we rethink, what should we recreate, and there's others that are really calling for more than just even reform or reimagining, but really shutting things down and doing things differently. So today I'm bringing on my two friends here to talk to all of us about what it means to really take care of and support and educate our youngest citizens. So welcome, Ijuma, and welcome, Isela.
Hi, Christy.
Hi, guys. So we had this little dream. I think I probably started it and drug them in to sit down and have some really critical conversations. Every time we get together, we start talking about something, and it's like, we really need to have this conversation with everyone. And so we dreamt up this idea to have these transformative talks. And today we're talking about what the purpose of early care and education is. So before we get started and dive into the what, the how, and the where, Ijuma, maybe you could start us off with an idea or two about an agreement that we can hold on to as we go through this conversation today.
What's coming to mind is thinking about impact over intention. That what we're going to share and what we're going to might criticize might have a lot of good intentions, but we're really going to work to focus on the impact that it's having and how we can actually support people and not, well, they're nice people. Like, I know, like, that school district is really committed and loves children, and that's great, and that's how it should be. But we're also going to talk about how policies and practice impact. So I think, like, that's one of the grounding principles that I want to.
It's one of my favorite, and it's also one of the hardest ones because you want like brownie points or a gold star, or you want to not feel like you're criticizing people, because we see so much of that right now where people are really attacking school districts and leaders and teachers. So I appreciate that we can keep that in mind, that our intention might be well intended, but we have to be cautious of our impact. And then Isela, because it's going to be hard, or it's going to be hard for me, I should say. It won't be hard for everyone. It feels hard for me. How can you help me or others just sort of stay with our lids on, right? So that my lid doesn't flip. How can I sort of stay and have this critical conversation without flipping my lid?
I think throughout our entire journey doing these transformative talks, the intention is really to talk about the hard stuff. And we avoid talking about the hard stuff because it's uncomfortable. It's either uncomfortable for me, or it's uncomfortable to say it out loud. And so I'm afraid what other people are going to think and say. And I think being really introspective, understanding or being reflective of where am I experiencing that, whatever I'm feeling, whether it's uncertainty, doubt, fear, like where within my body am I experiencing that? And one of the things I like to do is just notice it. And I know this sounds really goofy, but it's to welcome it.
Yeah.
It's to say, hello, discomfort. I feel you right now. I feel your discomfort. I feel the discomfort. And just to sit with that sometimes what happens is we don't know and it's uncomfortable. So we push it away. We distract ourselves. So this process, I think, is learning how to sit with it and to start to feel comfortable in the discomfort of it all.
It's interesting that you say that. I have another coach Ijuma, not to make it jealous or anything, but I have another coach. And last night she was talking about the word transforming. Her name's Janie. And part of, I won't say it exactly right, but the way she was talking about it was just what you were saying, Isela. Sometimes in neuroscience, we call it name it to tame it. But what you were saying was even further than that. So much of the time when we feel something that we don't want to feel, we like, let's avoid that or resist it or run from it or say it was somebody else. And instead, we're sort of like going to release it, I think is the word she used. So by recognizing it, I can begin to release it. So for right now, I can go, wow, that feels really crappy that my best efforts for a reopening plan aren't well accepted. And instead of like trying to figure out and justify, but I was really intending the best and I worked really hard. It's like, it feels bad that it's not working out well. And where do I notice that? Right? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah. And the thing about taming it, I don't always want to tame it.
Okay.
I want to acknowledge that it's there and figure out why it's presented itself to me. Why is it there? And when we can lean into it and move into that experience, it actually dissolves. With the power it has over us dissipates. But when what we resist persists, right? And then we try to put a cap on it or to stuff it or whatever. Even the idea of taming it, I want to move into the experience, recognize it, sit with it, breathe through it, because breathing is super powerful. Breathe through that experience. And again, once we recognize that it doesn't have power over us, then it starts to dissipate when we're really intentional about it. We'll talk more about that as we keep going, because I can go on for days about that.
No, this is good. It's really important. Yeah. So Ijuma, did anything come up as you were listening to that?
And I think it's just a reminder, like I think about that movie and the character says, but did you die? Right?
Right.
It's not, like having these hard conversations isn't going to kill you, right? Just because you're having discomfort doesn't mean that you have to fight it or fear or fly from it. You don't have to do the fear or flight.
Yeah.
You can just stay with it, right? And you're not going to die. We're here. We're supporting you, even virtually. And that it's going to be okay, that we can move past the discomfort. And it doesn't have to take up a bunch of space.
And just maybe because part of our themes is race, ability, and equity. Ijuma, maybe for those who are trying to get their head wrapped around the discomfort, maybe could you just situate it for us for a minute in terms of like where that comes from in terms of the white dominant culture, why it's so pervasive, especially as we think about how many teachers and teacher leaders are also white?
Mm-hmm. That it comes from that white dominant culture doesn't want us to talk about racism. It wants us to pretend that race doesn't exist and it's not impacting anyone because white dominant is benefiting from it, right? That's part of the white dominance, that's part of white privilege. So of course, if we don't talk about it, then no one has to do anything about it. And I get to keep my power and my privilege. And so that's where that discomfort, because the discomfort is calling you to give up your privilege, to give up the systems that are oppressing other people. And so that feels discomfort because you got to give something up. And that's the work that we're being called to do.
And I think a lot of people or a lot of white people were often sort of thinking, okay, I've got to give up school for spring break. That's how it sort of started in the spring. Like, we have to give up school and have an extended spring break. And it was like, holy crap, we're going to have to give up school for the rest of the year. And it was like grieving and grieving and grieving. And then it was like, okay, we're going to have to give up extended school year. But it's going to all be back to the comfort and the normalcy and the status quo, which will give me comfort by the time fall. And now that's not quite working out either. And
yeah,
that's why. Yeah.
And the reality is that it's never going to go back to normal, right? Because
but you want that.
Well, you want it because that was comfortable, right? The devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't. And
say that one more time.
It's better with the devil that you know instead of the devil that you don't. And so people want that comfort. They want that nostalgia, even though it was harming people. And even now, like part of it is showing the equity in our system, that the system was already broken. The system was not working for everyone. And so moving forward, we got to let that go and create systems that work for everyone.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this. So, and either of you can go on this. So we're going to talk about three kind of things about the purpose of education in general. There's like what we teach, there's how we teach, and there's where we teach. There's other ways to divide it, but that was a good framework for me. And when I was thinking of more about the white dominant culture, I was thinking about how binary, of course, always, that we have like what we teach, across it'll come up especially in the how we teach, because like teacher directed versus child directed, where we teach, in person, online. So you'll see a bunch of that. But when we think about what to teach, I feel like that is the biggest, for me, the most obvious place of the inequity, because what we were teaching was like the same thing to everyone. It was predetermined, and you had to like fight to get an IEP if you needed something different. But even the IEP looked an awful lot like everybody else's IEP. And we started saying that kids were on an IEP versus they needed support and services. But the reason they needed support and services was because society was creating barriers to their learning. So when you think about what, and y'all think about the purpose of early care and education, what should we be teaching young children? Yeah, that's the big question to start off with.
Am I going first?
Okay. We always do rock, paper, scissors.
I know, right? So this is a big one for me, because I think, we're built on 100-year-old system. We have decided what should be taught to children. And just to be frank, I watch my daughter who's 12 years old. I think back, because she's 12 years old when I was 12 years old. And I'm like, why the hell do you need that? Like, what you should be learning is how to like get a mortgage and how to figure out, have financial literacy. Like, we have to get to know what our kids need.
Yeah.
Why is that so hard? Why is it so hard to come from a place of understanding, of trying to understand who they are, what it is that they are interested in, what drives them, what are their passions? And we have to get down to the reality that with technology the way that it is, in 15 years, 20 years, these kiddos who will be entering the workforce are going to be entering a workforce that we can't even begin to understand. We can pretend to understand what that's going to look like. So how about we tap into who they are and figure out what do they need? And everywhere you go, that's going to look different.
Mm-hmm.
But what that means is that we have to learn to trust. And without that trusting in children, trusting in educators, trusting that we can be reflective and responsive to the needs of others and learn how to do that as a community, then we're going to keep missing the boat.
So a couple weeks ago at the Summer Leadership Institute, Shelley Moore, who's amazing, said that, and she yelled it. She's like, children are the curriculum. So if I yelled that at you, Ichuma, what does that mean? Like if children are the curriculum, what does that mean for our tests and our curriculum in a box and our standards? Like,
that means that we don't need them, right?
Right.
Like, all those tools are about making someone else money. It actually doesn't support the learning and the growth of children, which is part of why we are in early education, to support learning and growth, right? So that means that that's something that we should give up. Mm-hmm. Because children, if we trust educators, they can figure out themselves what would be an equitable way to assess their learning, how to watch them grow, how they can be self-reflective and see their own growth and development, how they can set their own goals of thinking about what they want to do with their time and with the space that we share together. I think a lot of times when we talk about, asking children, and people think, well, I have like 20 children. And what if everybody wants to do something different?
Yeah.
Like, that might happen, but usually what happens is that you just get smaller groups. That like one big idea will bring a group of children together because we want to be in relationship with each other, and then they work out, well, how can we work on this? How can we learn more about it? Like I've never, all my time in early education and being in the classroom, and being child led, like there's never been that all 15, 20 children want to do different things. Maybe there's like one person that really just has an idea that only they want to do and they'll do it, but it's not 15, 20. Like I'm not managing 15, 20 projects.
No,
Maybe
I think what happens is if we as teachers create something, then we're fearful that 15, 20 kids won't want to do this. It's not really that we believe that they're going to do 20 different things. We just mean that they don't want to do this.
Yeah, and even if we decide, all the time they don't want to do it, so we spend time managing them and policing them to make them do the thing that we want, and even for like their own good, right? Like we need to teach so you can get a higher score on this assessment, so we can get funding. Like people feel that pressure.
Yeah.
Or like they teach to the test, like when you get into pre-K, kindergarten, first through third, right? Teaching to the test. Children don't, like if you ask children, nobody says, oh, I want to learn the test stuff. No one says that. Maybe when they get older, like a SAT or something like that. But
even then, Juna, it's just to get into, it's just an arbitrary gatekeeping into higher ed. I mean, it's just another form of inequity. And so Isela, do you want to go back around on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, and I work with a lot of K-3 teachers. And so I think for a lot of teachers over the years, especially the last 15, 20 years, they've been expected to do a certain thing a certain way. So these are the benchmarks you're required to meet. And I'm going to give you the curriculum, and this is what you're going to read verbatim so that kids can get there. I had a conversation with the principal one time, and I said to her, the kids are behaving that they are because my area of my specialization is social emotional development. So I go in and I said, the reason why kiddos are behaving the way they are is because they don't care about what the teacher's presenting to them. They're not attached to it. It's not meaningful. It's not relevant in their lives. Right. And you have the expectation that they're going to be responsive to it. I said, you change that and you're going to see a completely different classroom. The principal said to me, I believe what you are saying, Isela. She said, I absolutely agree with you, but I don't trust that the teacher can do that. And so I said to her, well, then that's the problem, is that we need to start talking about how do we practice, because teachers, it's not that they don't have good intentions. It's not that we all go into teaching with an open heart. I really believe that. But I think that we sometimes lose sight because we don't get to practice collectively the process of being thoughtful about children. What are they telling me when they do that? What the conversations that was happening outside, instead of being a monitor outside, listening to those conversations and going, oh, they're really interested about this or that. How do I fan the flame? How do I support that interest? How do I help them become excited about learning? And I want them to learn to read. I want them, like, I'm not saying we want our kids to be illiterate. I'm saying I want my kids to read, but we can do it within the context of what's exciting for them.
I would say I want my kids to love reading.
Oh, I want my kids to love learning.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that by third grade, we have lost our kids in terms of curiosity. We have lost it. They are without curiosity, I don't have the desire to learn.
And I'm so afraid that in our rush to recreate, to get back to the comfort, to get back to what was familiar, or that devil, oh gosh, I just feel for everyone, but it's like, we're so into the how we're going to deliver it and the where we're going to deliver it that I don't feel like we've gone even further. And what you're both hitting on is sort of like this trust and this belief in us as a group to do something. Like we're just going, we're just doing. And we don't even understand where we're upholding systemic oppression, where we're policing each other. Yeah. It's even before what is what I'm hearing you all say.
And we're chasing that memory. And it's like I keep crossing between the chasing the memory and filling a hole in the bucket. Because it's like, how do we make do, right? Until we can go back to normal. Why do we want to go back to normal? Like, here is our opportunity. Yeah.
I know. It's like literally a once in a lifetime, hopefully once in a lifetime opportunity.
Right.
I would say, someone said it the other day, I think his name was Dan, it's not even a once in a lifetime opportunity, it's a once in a lifetime responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, ooh, that's good, right? Because if we were to collectively say, whew, I know it's fall. I know we always start school on September 7th. What if we didn't? And I don't mean just because we're phasing it out and going to wait and go to October 12th. Like, that's not what I mean. But like, what if we really pushed pause? I know immediately, because I'm outside of my comfort already, girls, is that I'm like, but what about these poor families?
Mm-hmm.
But then I go, right, we have to come together as a community to figure out how do we support children safely while we're rebuilding schools. Like, does that, right? Am I getting kind of close to Juma?
Yeah. And I think like moving back into having it be about community and having it be and making sure that families have their basic needs, right? Yeah. So we have to make sure that people have a way to earn an income because they've been hit through the pandemic. We have to make sure that people are eating, that people have health care, that society actually needs to move in and take care of each other in a way that hasn't been done before. That
versus
this
school
we can't move forward with this individual viewpoint or this individual, like that's just for that family to do. No, this is all of our responsibility.
Yeah.
And so we all have to be in community together and figure that out. And so we're going to pause what's happening in the system, the big system, the school. Then we do have to figure out then how can we to still take care of children? How can we still make sure that they're having some learning experiences?
That's what I was just going to say. If that's the purpose, you said it earlier, Ijuma, is to support their growth and development. I'm afraid, because we're binary as white people, is that when we say pause school, we're like, but we're not going to educate you. Like we're taking a gap year. We don't mind us. We'll be over here. Like, that's not what we're saying either.
No, because living life is a learning opportunity. Right? School, like, we have to give up this idea that it only happens in that building. Because that's where we're struggling. Like, we think that it only happens in these four walls when a nice little white lady gets up and starts talking to us.
Yeah. Because then we quickly go, yeah, but what about those families where they, all those things where their learning is not happening?
But they're learning something. Like, you've got to learn a lot to be part of a family.
Yeah.
And it's our responsibility as a community to help those families figure out what it is that they need and how we can support them and how children can learn.
So now that we're talking about how, let's go there. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, and what's important in terms of what we're learning, because I see so much stuff out there that I go, that's just stupid. I'm like, why are we even doing that? Like, seriously, why are we wasting our time? Write a story, have them act it out, have them wonder and discover and tap into their curiosity. But what are they doing? Sitting on a table working on a worksheet. Yeah. That's not life-changing.
No.
Well, it is, but not the way you want it to be.
And that can't be the best that we do.
Yeah. Right.
Having a worksheet, it should not be the best that we can do.
It's like, that's why I say, like, what's the purpose of education? If you're going to put humans at risk, and I mean from teachers to children to grandparents to whomever in our society, and you're going to bring you all together, why in the world would I bring you together to be in a plexiglass container at a desk with a worksheet? Where in my mind did I decide that is better than life? Mm-hmm. Like, I think we got a little bit lost.
We did.
A lot of it lost. And that's maybe one of those places, Ijuma, about the intention versus impact.
Mm-hmm. Because I think like we have an intention, like we intend to educate children.
Yeah.
But what's the impact of our practices?
Well, we saw this the other day, like, and I always think of the Michael Franti song, but it's like kids are going to be crying alone. Like you're going to fall down or you're going to need something and you're just going to be on your own. That's going to be more harm than ever potential good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we talked about this.
I'm noticing where it's feeling it. I'm feeling it right here.
Where are you feeling it? In your gut?
Right here in my stomach.
Yeah, got to lean into that.
Okay.
I think compliance and control. That's a big deal right now. Compliance and control. It really is, and we have to recognize why. Why is that what's important right now?
Whenever we get fearful, I think that compliance and control ratchets up. Fear of losing money, first of all, probably. Fear of losing any idea that you have control. Maybe even fear of losing identity. Like if I'm not a teacher, what am I? Or if I'm not a building administrator, if I'm not a football coach, what am I? I think there's a bit of identity crisis or confusion. There has to be.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about how. So how is how we support children's growth and learning. So I already alluded to that there's the binary, that in early childhood, we've had this debate always about, and we sometimes say it's a continuum, but it's really teacher directed or child directed. And now I see a lot of conversation about we're either going to be online or we're going to be in person. Maybe we're going to be a hybrid. But I think I also see, maybe worse yet, we're taking groups of children, like all the children that need special education, and we're going to say, you all are going to go in person. If you don't have an IEP, you're going to go online. And that's an even stranger way to decide where. But we touched a little bit, sorry, I'm mixing up my how and my where. But how we deliver instruction, that's like what's on everyone's mind. Like, how do we teach 3-year-olds through the computer? So what are your thoughts about how we teach? What is the way that we teach and support young children before, during, and after a pandemic?
Mm-hmm. So I think it goes back to being in a relationship, right? That, and the discomfort around technology and the not knowing why is really on us, because children, when they're introduced to technology, they have some ideas about how to use it and what it's for. And so I was talking to an educator that she was a little bit upset because one of her 3-year-olds the mom set up the whole laptop, turned it on, and he came up to it. He was like, "Hi, teacher." And then he went off screen and she was like, "What is he doing?" He came back with his toys and just sat down. And so she's talking, trying to read a book, and he's sitting there playing, right? Because he sees her like it's school time, right? So I go get the stuff that we do at school. And so he's sitting down playing. And she was like, I spent all that time trying to figure out like how to give the content and read this book and help them process their emotion. I was like, but what was he showing you that he understands about school, right? What was he showing that he understands about technology and what this can be about? He was showing you that school and me being with you means that it's playtime. And that we like sit and you watch me play, because that's what you do when I go to the building every day. So I'm gonna do that for you right now. Like, I know we're on the screen. That's why I said hi to you. Like, I know about that. But I also know that when I'm with you, that we play.
Yeah. So
why wouldn't you offer that? Why wouldn't you think about, well, how can I be a witness to their play, even if we're virtual? How can we play together in this virtual realm? What are the possibilities in that? Instead of thinking like, oh, I have to like be a YouTube star now and read all the books and do all the puppet shows.
I have my calendar and
have my calendar in the back when we can listen to children like you did. And I know this, I was like, you listened to children when you were in the building. So why wouldn't you listen to the children now?
That's a good
Because we did that, we would get a lot of the answers.
Yeah.
What I tell administrators in my recent conversations to do is to sit together and ask, what do we know about whatever age you're working with?
Okay.
So what do we know about 3-year-old children? What do we know about, even like I work with a group that they loop with their kids. So I'm like, okay, what do you know about your kiddos? And just get it all out. Everything that you know about them, you know, what they need, what they like, and what we recognize. And I mean the whole child, not just the intellectual self, because that's the part that, especially when we get into the older grades, that's where our focus is. But physically, what do they need? Emotionally, what do they need? Socially, what do they need? Like, what are they telling us, right? Unpack it all and then start to look at how do we support their physical development, like virtually, like how do we do that? Well, you know, you can dance together, you can have a snack together. The K3 world, I'm a strong believer in having lunch with those kiddos.
Yeah.
So often I see teachers, they stand back and watch or monitor, you know. I believe in sitting with, engaging. That's when I get to know who they are. And I just think if I was a teacher right now virtually, I would actually have a snack with them, these, you know, 3rd grade kids, and just have a conversation about life, about what they like. It's like, why don't we do more of that? So we have to know what it is that who they are and how we can support their growth, learning, and development.
Mm-hmm.
What I love about what both of you are saying is always, again, it's like, there are things that we still know about tried and true ways to be in relationship and to be play partners, and that we know it's what before how. The how is never as complicated when you're clear about the what. So if your intention is compliance or to cover the content, you're going to struggle. It's going to be a battle. If your what is to eat goldfish together, it's a lot simpler to think about how we might do that over the phone or in a park or on Zoom. I also have been thinking a little bit about Stuart Schenker's work around stressors, and really wanting, when we're observing children, I liked your word there about witnessing, but I'm also noticing not only your motor needs and your language needs, but I'm really thinking about being a stress detective. How can I notice that your lid is about to flip? How can I notice that I need to reduce some stressors for you? I feel like that would be a lovely conversation that people could have with families, to really understand when the child is in homeostasis versus when they're having trouble regulating, and how we can like be a stress detective instead of a teacher. Or those are synonyms for me, but you know what I mean. All right. So then we think about where, and we've kind of gone back and around because we've been talking about virtual and in person and so forth. Let's just expand a little bit to some of the ideas you guys are talking about. But how do we tap into what childcare has been doing? I really want you both to talk a little bit about that, in the sense of like, childcares have been going since March. There are things we know in our early childhood community. We don't even have to go to the CDC or to Finland. We can just go to our neighborhood childcare and learn a lot. So I'm curious about that. I'm also curious about how we go, again, how is this a societal solution versus a school board solution in terms of where learning takes place? So just open that up.
So I think the places that have remained open, what they know, like they know about infectious diseases. They know how things spread. They know how to clean, right?
Okay.
And they know that it's not just like they're cleaning, that they have someone come in and do cleaning overnight, you know, every evening. They know how to sterilize. So a lot of the things that are being recommended for the health and safety are already practices in early childhood. Like we're always washing our hands. It took like 5 years out of the classroom before like I didn't have dry hands. Right? Because you're always washing your hands. And so then we're thinking about the additions of masks and the personal protection equipment. And so introducing that to the children and introducing that to what we do and how we talk about it and how we keep each other safe. Like we know how to do that. Like we talk about where we're doing it this way to keep each other safe. Because there is a pandemic. Like we tell the truth about what's going on. And this is why these things have changed. This is why you've been away for so long, that we haven't all been together. And now we're trying to come together, but still keep each other safe.
Yeah, because I feel like, I don't know, maybe there are some, but I haven't really heard it or seen it. I don't see childcare stripping down and taking out all the toys and removing all of the materials and giving kids just a desk and their own toys. And that's what I hear a lot of preschool programs are saying, well, you know, how are kids going to play when they only have their own little box of toys and they can't, you know, or virtually, I'll just say it, they have to have had breakfast and be in their uniform and in front of Zoom by 9, Isela. But yeah, so where
you want to get me started again, don't you?
And so we know how to have the appropriate expectations, right? So we actually do believe about limited screen time. We're not going to schedule 6-8 hours, right. Even anything past 2. I can barely do 2 hours of Zoom a day.
Yeah.
So we already know that isn't okay to do, that we do have to figure out a different where.
Yeah, because I am worried about the screen time. It's like we do know what it does to our brains. And I also understand that we're not trying to shame people and say, but I think we have to be real about what screens do. I mean, I worry about all these amazing parents that sit through professional development with me with their kids. And just the secondhand screen time, it just worries me. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to put one more burden on parents that are trying to work and do PD and take care of their children. But I think we really have to we can't just go, well, it's a pandemic, so screen time is like, gotta pass. I'm pretty sure I've rewired my brain. Mm-hmm. I know I have. And not for the better.
And so we have to be honest about that and have those conversations. And so maybe it isn't like we're on here every day for multiple hours. I'm laughing because I need to take my own advice.
Right. I know, right? I'm like, right.
And I can barely manage as an adult.
Yeah.
And so it's not fair that we have these expectations on children. And it's not because of education, it's about compliance and control.
Okay.
Because all the rules that we have around children being present online are about compliance and control, and we want to police children. So, like, be honest, and we got to let that go. If we're going to be about education, let's be about education and do what we already know and figure out the things that we don't know. Because we don't know the long-term impact of all the screen time and all the virtual learning is going to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Isela?
But I think it's also it's not acceptable to me. And this was before pandemic, when we had practices that I think were what I would call inappropriate practices for children. The expectation to sit for long periods of time, sitting 40-minute circle times. Like that is not, even if you're second grade, that's not developmentally appropriate. Mm-hmm. Children should not be in a whole group instruction for more than 15 minutes. And what I would do with my kiddos when they were ready to go, they could go, and those who wanted to stick around and keep reading with me, they could stick around and keep reading with me. It's like we should not, and what we do is we move them from whole group to whole group with a brain break in the middle. What's this crap with the brain break in the middle? Like seriously, moving from whole group to whole group and saying that we transitioned, so we gave them a break. So we take that bad practice and now we're trying to do it virtually. Yeah. And I think that we need to just scratch it all because, and then I get teachers who will say to me, well, he won't sit still. I didn't sit still either. I couldn't hold myself together.
right? Why is that the expectation?
Right.
Like they're children with bodies that need to move.
Yeah. And I think that's true for middle school. I think that's true for high school. I think just because they are older doesn't mean that we ignore what we know about human beings.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've ignored it far too long. And so we say to ourselves, but I do it. I can do it. I had to do it. That doesn't make it right.
Nope.
That doesn't make it good.
Well, here's the problem with that. Because they can, we think we should. And then it becomes the norm. It's what happened in kindergarten. We had an expectation that kids could now sit for long periods of time, and the kids who are unable to, it's not because they're unable to, it's because it's developmentally inappropriate to ask them to do that.
Yeah. So I'm going to pause for a minute, y'all, because we actually have people joining us. And thank you for those who've joined us on Facebook, because we couldn't do it on YouTube. So, hey, Micah. Hello, Amanda. My good friend Adam, who I have not seen forever. I just wanted to share. Can you guys see the chat?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can, and I want to tell you that people are looking for us. So I'm going to respond to them.
Yeah, we're so sorry. We're supposed to be on YouTube. And I think I used up all my good tech mojo during the Summer Leadership Institute, and now it's just gone. But oh, Lori, good to see you. So, Ijuma, let's take a minute and read Adam's comment. So he says that he's appreciating this discussion about remote learning, which of course is challenging, but also exposes teaching as a public act as the public act it truly should be, immediately reveals where our conversation, relationship building, and in the moment responsiveness is lacking, exacerbates, Adam, you can't use such big words if I'm going to read out loud, exacerbates the issues associated with teacher-centered activity planning and highlights the realities of pervasive technology in our teaching. Oh, I just felt that one in my chest.
Yeah. And so I think supporting teachers to how to live in the fishbowl, right? As a consultant, as someone who presents, like I'm used to being in the fishbowl. I'm used to people listening to me talk, even though I hate the sound of my voice, right? That is, well, like my work and my learning is in public. And that's a hard transition to make. And we haven't had honest conversations with teachers about that. And we haven't been supporting them. Like, what does it mean to learn and teach in public now, right? Because now parents can sit in your class just like the children do.
Yeah.
Yep. Totally. Yeah. What is wrong with that teacher?
Right?
Right?
And they can judge you, and that can be scary. And then like your principal or your supervisor or director pops in, and then they're watching you. And so thinking about how to move into trust relationships, that if I'm coming and being in part of the classroom, that it can't be just to watch and observe you, that it has to be around partnership and about trusting. And so everyone needs a job. So if you're coming into this children's space and you're an adult, then it might be that, oh, let's find you a job. Like you're showing up like, oh, maybe you can go and get the snack for your child and help them do that. Maybe you can be the demonstration, like how we cut up the fruit today. And so, and those directors, like maybe you're coming and maybe you're the one that reads the book. Maybe you want to talk about something interesting that happened to your day. And so it's not that that teachers don't have to live in this fishbowl and be judged.
Yeah.
And because that's very, very scary.
There were so many beautiful things you just shared there, Ijuma. I love this idea of first recognizing that yet again, we've asked teachers to take the brunt of something. And in so many ways, just an expectation that you will come back when we reopen, whatever our format, or that you will teach in whatever format, whether you've been trained in it or not. And we're going to make it highly visible, and everybody's going to have an opinion, because everybody always does, about what's good, and we're not going to pay you well. There you go. Like, who wouldn't show up? Like, seriously. I just marvel at it. And then on top of that, I love this idea of just always going back to things that were good policies before. Like you were saying, Isela, what was developmentally inappropriate before is probably still developmentally inappropriate. So if only people coming into my physical classroom were there to evaluate me or judge me on some sort of curriculum fidelity measure versus come into the classroom and be part of our community, all hands on deck, be engaging, play, demonstrate, teach something that you know. I love that idea. So if anybody wants to Zoom or Zoom bomb or Zoom evaluate, nope, you're coming in to be part of the community, go into a small breakout or demonstrate something or help somebody. Yeah.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah. Good stuff. He does a lot of good teacher prep stuff. So I appreciate this. So,
So much.
So let's start to bring it to a close. Let's just recap kind of what we're doing in general with these transformative talks and let people know what our plan is going forward. And let's recap a little bit about what we talked about today. So if you're just joining us, this is a new adventure that the three of us are on. We call it Transformative Talks for Early Childhood Educators. And we really want to have these critical conversations. Our desire is to be streaming live on YouTube. We have our own YouTube channel. I just got to figure that little part out. So we jumped on Facebook Live today, but we'll put it over on the YouTube channel. So if you can't find us, we'll find a way to find you. And we're going to do it. I always have to look it up, but I think it's accurate to say bi-weekly, which means every other week. So every other week, the three of us are going to jump on YouTube and we're going to have another critical conversation. And we're open to things you want us to talk/rant about. I'm surprised we didn't rant too much about the uniforms today.
That's for another time. But there will be
a whole hour.
Be warned.
We need a whole hour to talk about the colonization and the white dominant culture and the harm that uniforms do. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let us know. You can drop something in the chat today if there's something you'd like to talk about. You can also go to our website. I'll put that up if I can. Yeah. And you can enter a question or something you'd like us to discuss. We really want it to be a conversation with you all. But let's just recap today. And maybe what we'll start with is Ijuma, tell us, remember our kind of guiding agreement or grounding principle. And then Isela, maybe remind us of how to like lean in. And then we'll ask each of us to close with a takeaway. So Ijuma, just kind of remind us of our kind of grounding today.
So our grounding today was impact over intention, that we really want to focus on the impact our practices and our policies are having in early education and not just our intention. Because we know that people have the best intentions and they love children and they want to educate, but we want to look at the impact.
Okay.
And so that's what hopefully we did today.
Yeah, well, we knew that was going to be uncomfortable, but there was going to be that dance going on. All right, so when I got uncomfortable, Isela, then what was I supposed to do?
Well, I guess the question is, did you feel discomfort at all through our conversation today? What were you experiencing? And where were you feeling that? And see that as an invitation to be reflective of why. Why did that come up for you? And again, I'm going to remind you, it sounds goofy, but if you say, hello, frustration, I see you there. I see you there in my shoulders. I see frustration. I feel you in my shoulders. And I always say if we make that an ally instead of our enemy, right? The experiences that we are having, then we learn to sit in the discomfort. And then we recognize there's no power over it. It's like what Ijuma said. It's like, did you die? No one died, right?
We're all still here. We're all still alive.
We all made it. That's the criteria. That's our evaluation of success. At the end of our critical conversation, are the three of us still alive? Ta-da! We could drop the mic. All right. So we're going to try to lean in, even if that discomfort was, I feel attacked, or I feel devalued, or I feel misunderstood. And that made us feel a little bit restrictive or resistive. So how, going forward, what's a takeaway, either a word or an idea? And I'll give you guys a moment to pause as well. And people listening can pause too if you've been with us the whole time. What's something that is your takeaway about the purpose of early care and education today?
I think what's coming up for me about the importance of still learning in community. That's about relationship and our relationship with each other, and now our relationship with technology.
Okay.
For me, it's practicing the process of being fully present.
Hmm.
What can you control? What's out of your control? And if it's out of your control, which is everything that you're probably concerned about, outside of your relationship with others, and even then, that's what you influence. You don't control that. It's who you are, how you perceive, what you experience, what you think about. It's like, think about what you can really control and be fully present in the experience that we call life.
And for me, I'm going to take what you said, Ijuma, about how can we play together? What are the possibilities? And I would love that phrase for anyone that's going to an early childhood meeting, or a grade level meeting, or a planning meeting, or a home visit. If we just said, with these other humans that are in front of me, how can we play together? What are the possibilities? That just makes me feel a great deal of hope. All right.
Yay.
So, yay for us. One down, 100 to go.
One down. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Isela. Thank you, Ijuma.
Thank you.
Christy.